Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Mucking Fun Day, and there's a lot of news that happened over the weekend, including the Brit Awards. So let's go ahead and get into our headlines and see what we're talking about today. Today on Before Coffee, Apple hit with a landmark €2 billion antitrust fine, and NATO begins large-scale military drills in Northern Europe.
We have a Haiti prison break and a massive storm in the mountains of Nevada and California.
Do you live in the UK? Well, it sucks to be a young person there, according to everyone.
And Nikki Haley wins the primary. And we have space news as NASA and SpaceX launch some astronauts into space.
Brit Awards 2024. Ray makes history with record number of wins.
And we have those stories and more, which is National Marching Music Day. March 4th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
Okay, time for our first two news stories. One, hopefully, they should be really small and short. That's why I put them together. But let's cover first from Edition on CNN. From Anna Kuban, Apple is hit with a landmark fine. That's right. The EU takes its regulations very seriously, and this time Apple is taking all of the money, I guess, the cost of it. The European Union has fined Apple 1.84 billion euros or 2 billion USD for breaking its competition laws. The bloc announced Monday that it would impose the fine, its first ever antitrust penalty on a US tech giant, for preventing rival music streaming services such as Spotify from telling iPhone users they could find cheaper ways to subscribe outside of Apple's App Store. Don't move your camera. I told you not to move your camera, and I saw you do it.
I moved it up, that's all. I moved it up. Right. You get distracted too easy.
I'm not distracted. I'm producer, editor, and everything on this show, so I have to pay attention to what you're doing. Right. Anyways, so basically the idea here is Apple's iPhones basically almost unevenly contribute to pushing their users to using Apple Music instead of Spotify or any Google Music, whatever music, okay? So, and that's breaking antitrust because similar to how, I think this happened a long time ago in the US, I think, where you're only allowed to use Internet Explorer on Windows machines. And they were like, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to basically force people to only use one browser because you're using the most popular OS in the entire world. Not allowed.
Yep.
Yeah. Margaret Vestager, the EU's competition and digital chief, said Apple AAPL had abused its dominant position as a distributor of music and streaming apps, adding that the European consumers did not have a free choice as to where, how, and what prices to buy music streaming subscriptions. This is illegal and has impacted millions of European consumers, Vestager said at a press conference. Apple responded that the decision of the European Commission, the EU's executive arm, had been reached despite its failure to uncover any credible evidence of consumer harm and ignores the realities of the market that is thriving, competitive, and growing fast. I'm going to be honest here, I think Apple Music sucks ass, but that's my personal opinion. I use YouTube Music. You know why? Because if I get YouTube Premium, I can use YouTube Music and I can use YouTube with no ads. Isn't that great? What a combo. So, right. I'm just a Google fangirl over here, so you'll find me signing off my soul to our Google overlords, even though supposedly Google's search engine is now trash. So, I don't even use it myself, actually. I use DuckDuckGo or whatever to hide my search data from the people who would buy it and use it to, I don't know, give me ads. The European Commission opened a formal antitrust investigation into Apple in 2020 after Spot lodged a complaint against Apple the previous year, accusing it of unfairly disadvantaging its competitors. It said Apple required the Swedish music streamer and other content providers to pay a 30% fee on purchases made through Apple's in-app payment system, while its own service, Apple Music, didn't have this pay fee. Spotify also said Apple prevented it from sharing information about subscription deals with customers who use iPhones. Okay, so Spotify wanted to put some ads out saying, hey, you can get 12 months free if you sign up for 5 years, but they weren't pushing out those ads to Apple iPhone users, and also they were charging, so instead of, I don't know, $2 a month, you're paying $2.70 or something. That's not 30%, but basically you have Spotify was 30% more expensive because they're trying to make up the cost of these fees they had to pay to even be on the Apple Store, basically. So why would you choose Spotify when Apple Music is so much cheaper? How convenient. Apple is one of the biggest sellers of smartphones, and its smartphone operating system is the only way to offer our app to anyone with iPhone, according to Spotify. Yeah, you have to use the Apple Store to get any apps. In January, Apple announced changes to its handling of apps in the EU, including plans to allow third-party app stores on iPhones and iPads, for the first time in the company's history, and significant cuts to its App Store fees. The changes were unveiled in anticipation of EU's regulation taking effect this month as part of the Digital Markets Act, a sweeping set of competition rules for big tech. So, more options. I mean, my phone has 3 app stores on it. Google App Store, Samsung App Store, and I think also like a Microsoft App Store, and that's why I use Android. That's right, I'm an Android user. Fuck iPhones. I'm a counter-culture... whatever, I don't know.
My iPhone I just had that was doing stupid shit just like that. I get in my car, turn on Bluetooth in my car, want to listen to, say, Amazon Music, and before I could do anything, Apple Music, whatever that app is called for Apple Music, starts up on my I didn't even know it was active, but the music playing on my radio is going from Apple's app that I never started, and I don't even know how to turn it off except to start another app. You know, to get that playing.
It's the default one, Yeah,
it's default. I don't even know it's playing. I didn't turn it on, and it's playing some shit I would never listen to. But what the hell is this, Apple? Can't throw it out the window because it's a work phone. But it was a work phone. All right, back to you.
It's really messed up, for sure. Most Android phones, for example, let you change your default apps. So if you want to use a different music app as a default music app, you can. But yeah, Apple is just like, why are you using anything but what we've created? That's weird. But to be fair, Apple does create this environment of anti-competition because brand loyalty and stuff like that, right? I have a MacBook and a Mac PC and an iPhone and freaking Apple Pro headphones. Like, there's people out there who genuinely everything you own is Apple, and Apple loves those people.
If you have a job where you have to have security, the only kind of phone they'll let you have is a freaking iPhone. They won't let you have an Android. Oh, it's made in Korea. Can't have that in our security. Well, that's the way it is. That's the same reason now they had stuck. Well, you make faces. That's what security is. It's got to be an American-made phone. And the only BlackBerry used to be the only one you could use. And then iPhone got certified as secure, which
for sure
Android can't. Android can't because theoretically they stole that technology anyway, the smartphone technology from Apple. Right.
All right. In my next short story here, let's talk about drilling, military drills in the Nordic countries now that NATO has expanded. Right. By Martin Balmusek at the Kiev Independent. The Nordic Response 24 NATO exercises begin in northern Finland, Sweden, and Norway on March 4th, which is today, I believe. Or was it yesterday? It's today. Today, March 4th, for the first time with the participation of Finland as a NATO member. The Finnish public broadcaster YLE reports. The Norwegian-led drills scheduled to last until March 15th, which is a Friday.
2 weeks.
are part of the largest NATO military exercises in decades, called Steadfast Defender 24. Nordic response will take place on land, at sea, and in the air, involving around 20,000 soldiers from 14 countries. So it's not just Sweden, Finland, and Norway, but all of the a bunch of NATO countries. Not all of them. Not all of them, because there's only 14. The exercise will demonstrate NATO's operating capabilities, cohesion, and will defend all of the alliance areas, the Finnish military said in a statement. As Steadfast Defender 24 will be the most substantial training exercise of NATO in decades, its preparations and those of Nordic Response 24 have been underway for a number of years already. The Institute for Study of War, ISW, I love that there's an institute for that, said on January 19th that Russia has launched an information campaign to cast NATO's Steadfast Defender as a provocation aimed against Moscow. In a way it is, if you consider defending yourself from attacks. The best defense is an offense, I guess. Steadfast Defender 2024 began on January 22 with participation of 90,000 troops from NATO countries and Sweden, becoming the alliance's biggest exercise since the Cold War. Tensions between NATO and Russia have been mounting since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with several Western officials warning of possible large-scale conflict between the two powers in the coming years. So there's your short update here on, is it escalation? I'm not sure if it's escalation. I would consider this more of like, you know when peacocks put out their feathers to be like, look at me, I'm scary, watch out. That's what I would consider this, right? They're showing, look, we have 20,000 soldiers from 14 countries mobilized in a practice drill for what, like not a week, but 2 weeks, right? 2-ish weeks. So don't think we're joking around when it comes to military, whatever, power, I guess, is what NATO's doing. They're just puffing their chest. They're making sure if Russia feels like they're being challenged, they should, because that's what they're trying to do, right? It's just, hey, we're serious over here. And they're doing it in Finland, because where is Russia closest to but Finland? So I think it's that's what we're doing here.
Training is important.
But that's the end of my story. My stories.
Okay, so in the US of A, well, not back in the US of A, but in this side of the globe, Haiti declares curfew after 4,000 inmates escaped jail amid rising violence. This is from Al Jazeera, and nobody put their name on it. Al Jazeera. At least 12 people reported dead as gangs pushing for Prime Minister's removal attacked 2 prisons. Haiti's government has declared a state of emergency and imposed a curfew after an explosion of gang-led violence over the weekend saw thousands of prisoners escape after assaults in the country's 2 biggest prisons. The 72-hour state of emergency went into immediate effect as the government said it would set out to find the killers, kidnappers, and other violent criminals it said escaped in the attacks. The curfew will be enforced from 6 p.m. until 5 a.m. The police were ordered to use all legal means at their disposal to enforce the curfew and apprehend all offenders. It said in a statement from Finance Minister Patrick Boisvert, who is acting as Prime Minister while Ariel Henry is overseas trying to salvage support for the United Nations-backed security force to stabilize the country in this conflict with increasingly powerful crime groups. Gangs led by Jimmy Cherizier, a former police officer known as Barbecue, are trying to force Henry from power. Pierre Esperance of the National Network for Defense of Human Rights said only about 100 of the National Penitentiary's estimated 3,800 inmates remained inside after the assault on Saturday night. We counted many prisoners' bodies. A report from the AFP news agency who visited the prison on Sunday said they saw about a dozen bodies outside it. The gate was open and there was hardly anyone left inside, they added. The Reuters news agency reported that there was no signs of police officers at the prison and its main door was open. A Am I the only one left in my cell? One identified inmate told Reuters. We were asleep and we heard the sound of bullets. The cell barriers are broken. In a statement, the Haitian government said the police tried to repel the gang against attacks at prison and another facility called Croix des Banquets. Esperance said it was not immediately clear how many inmates escaped from the second prison, which he said held 1,450 inmates. You hear the dog barking? Oh, you hear me? Are you there?
I'm still here.
You hear the dog?
No, I don't hear the dog.
I wonder if it's picking it up.
The dog is barking?
Yeah. Well, you're hearing me, so I guess it matters.
I hear you.
Hearing the dog is better. I just tapped the mic a bunch of times just to see what the hell happened on the meter. Okay.
Okay.
The government said the attacks left several wounded among the prison staff and inmates. In a statement, it thanked the population for their calm despite these very difficult times. Violence in Haiti has spiraled in recent days, after calls by Cherizier for criminal groups to unite and overthrow Henry. Cherizier heads an alliance of gangs and faces sanctions from the UN and the United States. One voluntary prison worker on Sunday said that 99 prisoners had opted to remain in their cells and in the main jail for fear of being killed in this crossfire. These included several retired Colombian soldiers who were jailed for their alleged involvement in the assassination of former President Jovenel Moise. Authorities warned people to be careful and to continue to support the national police, who will do everything possible to track down the fleeing prisoners and arrest those responsible for these acts. The statement read, the Prime Minister's exact whereabouts remained unclear on Sunday. Henry had been due to return from a visit to Kenya, where he signed a security deal to tackle gang violence. Nearly 15,000 people have been forced to leave their homes in recent days, and 10 sites hosting internally displaced people emptied over the weekend, according to the UN's International Organization for Migration. Okay, and other tragic news. Well, it could be proved tragic. We have this massive snowstorm in California. This is from BBC, which... what was that? Let's see if it reads better. Oh, we'll cover that later. We're going to cover SpaceX and NASA. The Sunday successful launch of a joint Crew 8 mission to the International Space Station in NASA Kennedy in Florida. This is from NBC News. Marissa Para and Rebecca Cohen. Together, NASA and SpaceX launched a crew of 4 to the ISS, in the Dragon spacecraft, marking SpaceX's 8th crew rotation mission to ISS within NASA's commercial crew. Now, Sunday's launch was a 3rd attempt after it was scrubbed twice because of bad weather. Engineers determined that a small crack on the hatch seal wouldn't present enough of an issue to abort the launch, and the mission achieved liftoff at 10:53 p.m.
Okay.
Mission crew members on the ground cheered when the first stage booster separated and the Dragon proceeded towards space shortly before 11 p.m. The NASA astronauts are Commander Matthew Dominic, pilot Michael Barat, mission specialist Jeanette Epps, and Russian Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Grebenkin, who is also acting as mission specialist. It is the first mission to the ISS for all except for Barat, who is making his 3rd visit. The Dragon spacecraft was launched by the Falcon 9 rocket, which SpaceX describes as a reusable 2-stage rocket, making it the first reusable rocket of its kind. Once it detaches from Dragon, it will land at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The crew, set to return in the fall, will spend 6 months at the ISS. Days ago, administrators revealed that they'd found a small area leak in a space station. It is not an impact to Crew 8, but I didn't want anybody to be surprised, ISS program manager Joe Montalbano said at a Crew 8 mission briefing.
There's a crack.
Yeah, you guys got a crack in your station. He said that the managers don't believe the leak will affect crew safety, but the teams are watching it. Well, let's get some caulking gun up there. And
Yeah,
while aboard the ISS, often referred to as a floating laboratory, the crew will perform more than 200 space science experiments as part of a long-term mission to prepare humanity for long-term stays in space. Some of the experiments include taking stem cells to space to study their effects on degenerative disease, as well as looking at the cellular impact of microgravity and ultraviolet radiation on plants, with hopes that plants can remain an increasingly important part of nourishment during such lengthy stays. Crew also experiment with pressure cuffs or on legs to see whether they alleviate health problems, including fluid shifts as astronauts in space experiencing weightlessness. With no gravity on the ISS, fluids in the body tend to shift upward toward the head, which can sometimes cause health problems with eye and head pressure, something astronauts are all too familiar with. Spirulina, often used in smoothies down on Earth, is also being sent to space on the Crew 8 mission. The astronauts looked to see whether microalgae could help remove CO2 from the air, providing both food and oxygen for astronauts. It's been a busy year for SpaceX, which undertook almost 100 launches within the past year. As about seemingly routine nature of an increasingly busy launch schedule, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson cautioned against letting guards down. Spaceflight is hard, spaceflight is risky. You never want to get into the frame of mind that it's so routine. Every time we launch, it's a white knuckle time, especially if humans are on top. So, a little SpaceX news, little people going into space news, and some violent prison break. Back to you.
It's really hard to have a peaceful prison break, realistically. So, but yeah, more people in space. I don't know what that means for everyone else, but you know, they're still trying to get to, I guess they're still trying to get to Mars one day, maybe.
It's fun to learn. There you go. It's just fun to learn. That's all you got to know about that.
Yeah. All right, for my next two stories, we're talking about how it sucks to be a British young person. Starting with, from the BBC, by Sean Seddon and Kate Wannell, Labour. Young people will be expected to take up work and training. There will be no option of a life on benefits for young people under Labour government, the party's shadow work secretary has said. Liz Kendall said Labour would invest in careers and skills training, but warned young people to have responsibility to take them up. The party said that a number of people aged between 16 and 24 who are not in work, education, or training is rising. A Tory spokesperson said that Labour has an abysmal record on youth employment. According to Office for National Statistics estimates, there were 851,000 young people not in employment, education, or training between October to December 2023. The number has risen to 20,000 compared to the same period in 2022 and accounts for 12% of all 16 to 24-year-olds. In a speech to Demos think tank in central London, Ms. Kendall said the Tories had failed on the economy, and that is because they have failed on work. She added, "This is our commitment to young people. We value you. You are important, and we will invest in you to help you build a better future with the chances and choices this brings. But in return for these new opportunities, you will have responsibility to take up the work or training that's on offer. Under our changed Labour Party, if you can work, there will be no option of life on benefits." So they want to cancel socialism. The party has not detailed whether it would introduce enforcement measures to back up its stance. Asked if Labour would compel people to work or withdrawing benefits, Ms. Kendall said she believed young people were chomping at a bit to take up opportunities. She added that in cases where genuine opportunities for work and training were turned down, it would be at the discretion of individual work coaches to decide what the response should be. Labour has previously pledged to invest 1,000 new career advisors, specialists, and mental health support in every school and so-called Young Future Hubs in every area to provide a range of services to vulnerable young people. It says it would fund the changes by removing tax breaks for private schools and closing tax loopholes used by some private equity fund managers. The party plans to reform the apprenticeship levy, a 0.5% tax on large employers, to invest in skills training. In her speech, Ms. Kendall also said Labour would overhaul access to work for disabled young people if it wins the next election. In response, a Conservative Party spokesperson pointed towards the previous record of Labour government on youth employment. The Tories have also attacked Labour's plan to reform the apprenticeship levy in order to fund its policy, saying it would lead to a reduction in the number of people getting on-the-job training. A Conservative Party spokesperson said, under the last Labour government, youth unemployment almost doubled, and the number of people seeking out work benefits soared. Their abysmal record speaks for itself. Alright, but, just to, give some partiality here, when was the last time the Labour government was in power? Just want to look that up. It's been a while. I need to see the history of when these guys were back in leadership. I can't even find Labour
last time in...
last time, I'm pretty sure it was a long time. Last time Labour had majority. I guess I should look up.
By Heath.
All I can find is a bunch of people saying Labour sucks for the longest time. But I actually just want to see somebody tell me when they've actually been, like the Conservatives have not been in power. Or haven't had the MP or whatever. Let's see, here we go. History of MPs. So the last time they were in power was in 2001, 2005. And I'm sure they were blamed for the 2008 recession or something. I'm just saying, the problem with the UK government and the US government is that while technically the UK government isn't a two-party system, they're basically a two-party system similar to the US. It's always been the Conservatives and Labour and then whoever else they can make a coalition with, right? But it's always been, they've been the leading ones. Since 1931, there hasn't been an MP that has been a different party since 1931, okay? So I would consider that a two-party system. Now, of course, similarly how the Republicans and Democrats work in the US, Conservatives are very much like Republicans, and they will blame the other party for all their problems, even if they haven't been in power since 2001. So, the economic situation of 2001 to 2005 is way different than the current one, I would argue. And like I said, I'm not saying Labour isn't to blame or Conservatives are all to blame, but you can't say young people not having jobs or access to work is the Labour's issue when you've been in power since 2010 or whatever. So, for like 14 years you've been in power and you're saying, it was a Labour, they should have tried harder. They are the Labour Party, we're the Conservative, we have nothing to do with Labour. But there's our short story on it sucks to be a young person right now because you really don't have any job security. The jobs probably being offered to you are work at McDonald's, but then also people treat you like shit because the only jobs available are working at McDonald's. You just go get a real job. There are no real jobs available except for working in the service industry. The service industry is the fastest and largest growing industry in the entire world, not just in the UK or the US or everywhere, right? People just want to sit there and be served.
As somebody that's looking for a job,
yeah.
I will tell you, there's plenty of great jobs opening, and they're not all in the service industry. And I don't know if they're all open or they're just teasing me, but this is all just in the service industry. You can apply for jobs you're not even qualified for and learn on the job. That's what everybody does.
Just get money in the bank. But that's the thing, right? People see the service industry as a transitional job to greater and better things in your life. But there are people who are fine working there, but they're paid shit and treated badly. So
if you got a job, just don't worry about what other people think because of crap.
And then in a little longer article, this is more about the UK and being young. From the Herald Scotland, from Ginny Sanderson. Most Scottish teens think their lives were going to be worse than their parents. Most teenagers in Scotland believe they will have a worse life than their parents. Disappointing new polling data released today reveals. Fear about money, the environment, and unemployment led to 55% of teens thinking this, according to a survey of 14 to 17-year-olds by Bernardo and YouGov. Almost 1 in 10 people, 9%, said they feel hopeless about the future, and another third thought their own children's lives would be even worse than theirs. So they think their life sucks, and that if they have children, their life are gonna suck. One teenage respondent said, "Everyone is struggling these days. My mom struggles to pay the bills, and she's a nurse with a master's degree. It's not that I'm clever, it's not that clever. So imagine my life will be harder than hers. I'm not that clever. I'm not very smart. So imagine how shitty my life is going to be." Nurses are treated awfully. This is true. According to research, 8% of teenagers in Scotland believe they won't have enough money at 30 to live comfortably. I can tell you now, that's happening already. Young people, I'm not talking about myself here, just like a lot of people. Young people were asked to imagine their lives at 30 as part of a survey, and 10% of the respondents also believe they're unable to change their own future. The figures are in line with the rest of the UK, Bernardo's says. One respondent said, "Everything can go to university and everyone can go to university and get qualifications. However, if you can't get a decent job afterwards, then it's like totally meaningless. You can only try your best and pray for some luck to come your way." Another said, "My older brothers worked hard and got great qualifications, cannot get good jobs. I think it'll be the same for me." Martin Crew, director of Bernardo Scotland, said the results of this polling make for a very disappointing reading indeed. It's as if these results suggest we have a generation of children who believe they will have a life worse than that of their parents. Then, as society, we have failed. The polling was released to coincide with a new report from Bernardo's Changing Childhoods, Changing Lives, which paints a bleak picture of children's lives in the UK. The report assesses the current situation for children and how crises such as cost of living, COVID-19, environmental concerns are impacting them in 2024. There are also forecasts for how things might develop in the future, including spiraling children's mental health and an increased of risk of online exploitation. Mr. Crew said at Bernardo's, "We're determined that children will not face these future challenges alone, and we know the current situation requires an urgent action." We also worked with young people to develop a new look for charity, one that stands out and feels relevant to children, young people, and families who need us. Despite the negative picture painted in the survey, there's also hope that things can get better. In Scotland, we are committed to keeping the promise to reform Scotland's care system so that all children grow up safe and loved. The charity is called it's calling on the Scottish Government to raise Scottish child payment to £30, abolish the young parent penalty, and invest further and faster into early intervention services and holistic family support. The young parent penalty? There's a young parent penalty? For what?
They have them flogged or something, right?
That's not, like, what does that even mean? Young parent penalty.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
The MPs have decided to give young parents less financial support because of their age. Oh yeah, I guess this is the idea that if you are 20 and have children, well, you're probably still living with your parents, right? So just ask them for money. We're not going to help you. I guess that's the idea of that law, the young parent penalty. They don't give support to young parents because shouldn't you have your parents support you? Why would you need us? They're also urging the UK government to abolish the 2-child benefit limit and introduce essential guarantees for universal credit. Mr. Crew said last year, Bernardo supported more than 11,500 children, young people and parents and carers in more than 150 services across Scotland. It's what we do. It's what we've been doing more than 150 years, and it's what we plan to do for many years to come. For many children, the future can seem hopeless. We want to change that and offer every child positive chances. Social Justice Secretary Shirley Ann Somerville said, "It's unacceptable that in 2024, children and young people continue to live in poverty in Scotland. That is why we have deliberately chosen to invest in public services and the social contract which binds the Scottish Government to the people we serve." Economic modeling estimates that actions we're taking will mean 100,000 children will be kept out of relative poverty and 70,000 kept out of absolute poverty next year. These are the lives of children across Scotland, in every community being impoverished by the action we're taking. Empowered. Being improved by the action we're taking. Against the backtrack of the UK government policies limiting the financial support to families, including 2-child limit in the benefit cap, we are taking real action to lift children out of poverty and improve their chances in life. Bernardo's is right to call for welfare reform, such as introducing an essentials guarantee and scrapping the 2-child limit. We know the UK government could lift a further 40,000 children out of poverty in Scotland this year if they made changes to the universal credit. So, I guess if you want to help some children in Scotland, go ahead and donate your billions to Bernardo's charity so that you can write it off on your taxes. Don't forget about that. And yeah, it's sad to hear that even though it's only 9% of young people believe life is hopeless and meaningless, that's still too many, I think. Children should be hopeful and youthful and positive about the future, because that's really what defines youth, you know, just that kind of running straight ahead into the horizon with no cares. The fact that they are so bogged down but with cares about the future and is it even worth being alive and having their own children is quite scary for humanity. Those are my stories. On to, I guess, yours.
Right on. Well, that's another country thinking that there's hope for the future, or as there ever was hope for the future. That's one of those things. Well, yeah. We're all hopeless for the future, but was there ever really hope? Think about it that way. Hope is dangerous. Let's think about it that way.
No, I don't think so. I've always been a hopeful person.
False expectations, you know. Raise your expectations to a level that there's really something to hope for.
There's a difference between being a realist and being hopeful. You can be hopeful and a realist at the same time. That's what I do.
Speaking of being hopeful, Nikki Haley wins a primary. And this is from Reuters. Graham Slattery. Nikki Haley wins Washington, D.C. Republican primary in a small symbolic news. Well, whatever you can get.
Yeah.
Presidential contender Nikki Haley won the Washington, D.C. Republican primary on Sunday, her first victory in the nominating process, and a symbolic win for the former U.S. ambassador of the United States. I mean, she was also governor of South Carolina. How come they don't say that?
I don't know.
Anyway, Donald J. Trump in the race. I'm sorry. She won 62.9% of the vote versus 33.2% captured by defendant J. Trump. It's not surprising that Republicans closest to Washington dysfunction are rejecting Donald Trump and his chaos to Haley campaign. Spokesman Olivia Perez Cubas said in a statement, the Republican nomination This is a badly written article. Trump won the first 8 nominating contests by significant margins before losing to Haley in America's capital city. The former president is also expected to win almost, well, that's just editorializing.
Yeah.
The core of Trump's base skews rural and is particularly strong in areas of low educational attainment. No shit. I purposely stayed away from D.C. vote because it's the swamp with very delegates and no upside, defendant Trump said in a post to the Truth Social platform. The city is also home to a significant number of federal workers who Trump allies have pledged to fire en masse and replace with loyalists if he wins in November. Some colleagues of federal workers have seen an increase in death threats in recent years, and Trump often refers to D.C. area as a swamp. Nikki Haley's victory could inoculate her from criticism she's unable to win a single nominating contest, though some Republicans see her popularity in Washington as negative. Many party leaders, of Trump included, portray the city as crime-infested. And, well, if anybody knows about crime-infested, it's Trump. He's very crime-infested. This is not the first time Republicans at Capitol have rejected Trump. During the last competitive Republican nominating contest in District of Columbia, Trump received less than 14% of the vote and no delegates, even as he went on to win the nomination nationally. Of course, there was more people in the race then. This time there's only 2 choices.
Yeah.
There's your quick news brief there for Mucking Fun Day. Another news brief on the weather, because we always got to cover everything that's happening in Mother Nature, just slamming California and the mountains. This is from theguardian.com. We're using a foreign source. Look at me. Strong winds and snow pose a threat to life in Sierra Nevada mountains, while snowfall cuts power in northern India. So they're talking about northern India too, but I don't know if that's in this article. We'll see. We'll see. California was hit by a powerful blizzard the weekend that affected the Sierra Nevada mountain range. A blizzard is a combination of dry, powdery snow alongside strong winds. It can also contain lightning. Under its most intense burst, the blizzard that struck California produced up to 152 millimeters of snow in an hour and 300 kilometer per hour gusts, or 190 mile per hour gusts, which is really strong wind. That's way beyond hurricane. By 6 a.m. local time on Saturday, the Mammoth Mountain ski area received 0.6 meters, or almost 2 feet of snow, and was forced to close. The National Weather Service described this event as life-threatening. The snow continued to fall overnight, with up to 3.7 meters sweeping across the highest parts of the mountain range by Sunday morning. 3.7 meters, holy crap. Warnings for extreme avalanches were put in place across the greater Tahoe region until that afternoon. People were advised to remain indoors, although conditions look more settled at the start of the week. There's a risk of further snowfall on Wednesday. Meanwhile, in northern India, also experienced significant snowfall and rainfall in recent days over high ground in Himachal Pradesh. More than 500 millimeters of snow was recorded early last week, leading to 350 road closures, including 4 national highways. The snowfall cut power to many people, and people have been urged to not leave their homes unless necessary amid avalanche concerns. On lower ground, heavy rainfall caused travel disruptions, with more than 80 millimeters recorded in the town of Manali and about 30 millimeters across other parts of the state. A red warning for thunderstorms was issued on Saturday. Thunderstorms are also expected to affect the United Arab Emirates from Monday until Tuesday afternoon, bringing hourly total rainfalls of 10 to 15 millimeters, alongside hail and lightning.
Wow.
Strong winds that will accompany these storms will blow sand and dust, in turn reducing visibility and creating rough conditions at sea. Later in the week, temperatures are likely to drop across the Persian Gulf to 10 degrees or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, below the seasonal average across Oman, UAE, and southern Iran and Saudi Arabia. There's your weather forecast for Saudi Arabia.
Okay, well, hopefully those winds don't pick up over Europe, because last time we had winds from the desert. I had a cough for 3 months.
Yeah, them dry winds.
Yeah, those dry winds are nice because they're warm, but it's when the sand is in the wind. Like mystery sand from who knows, all over Europe, right? Being swept into the North Sea. I think that happened, I want to say 2018 that happened. The Sahara, actually, specifically. It was the Saharan desert sands. The wind was so strong, it was being swept in to the all the way to the UK, basically, was just full of sand. And whatever else they picked up on the way, right? Whatever else they picked up on the way, including the
spring
sand.
Spring is known for windiness. Yeah.
All right. For our culture segment, we're going to review just a short little review here on the Brit Awards, which happened over the weekend. This is from Euronews Culture. Singer-songwriter Ray, R-A-Y-E, capitalized, made history last night, winning 6 of the 7 prizes she was nominated for. She beats the likes of Blur, Adele, and Harry Styles in terms of wins at a single ceremony. The Brit Awards 2024 saw Ray clean up, and rightfully so. The British singer-songwriter led nomination with a record of breaking 7, and made history by winning a record number of 6 trophies, including Artist of the Year, Album of the Year, My 21 First Century Blues, and Song of the Year, Escapism. Prior to Ray, no artist had won more than 4 Brit Awards in any one year, with Blur, Adele, and Harry Styles each achieving that feat. She is also the first woman to win Songwriter of the Year. Wow. I hate hearing that phrase, the first woman ever to do something. I'm like, in 2024, we're still doing first women to this? God, disappoints me every time.
But it's just an award show, so...
Yeah, I know, but it's still like... She's the first woman to ever write a song worthy enough of an award, you know? Specifically in this... Whoever votes for the Brit Awards, right? She's the first woman ever to do that. Everyone else wasn't worthy enough. Collecting her prize barefoot, she said, "The artist I was 3 years ago would not believe I'm in control. I'm my own boss." Ray faced years of rejection from her record label before being freed from her contract, following her to keep the songs that she had written. She then decided to release them herself, leading to her song Escapism becoming a viral TikTok hit and then a #1 single. Her debut album, My 21st Century Blues, is one of our albums of the one of Euronews Culture's album of the year. In a review written, they said the album boldly breaks through genre boundaries and delves candidly in some of her most vulnerable life experiences, from the global smash hit Escapism to the emotionally charged progressive house beats of Black Mascara, and the profoundly moving track Ice Cream Man. Ray's prowess brilliantly shines through, proving her to be a true force to be reckoned with. The album is undoubtedly one of the year's best. And it was, according to the Brit Awards anyways. Dua Lipa opened the show with a performance for a new single, Training Season, and later won Best Pop Act. Her third album is expected to be released this year. Elsewhere, US singer-songwriter SZA managed to the impressive feat of bagging Best International Artist, beating the almighty Taylor Swift to the gong. Predictably, International Song of the Year went to Miley Cyrus's Flowers, and International Group of the Year went to Boy Genius. Also one of the favorite albums from last year, Boy Genius, a supergroup comprised of Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, and Julian Baker, signed their debut LP in 2023 with the excellent The Record. In our in Euronews Culture's end of the year review, they wrote Boy Genius had delivered an addictive and achingly intimate ode to collaboration, and listening to the record, literally it's called The Record, stylized in lowercase like the band's name, makes you feel like you're privy to a mic sharing session between three mates who genuinely enjoy their creative time together. Kylie Minogue, who picked up this year's Brits Global Icon Award, also closed the show with her own live performance. Here is the list of the full winners of the Brit Awards 2024. Album of the Year, the nominees were Blur, J Hus, Little Sims and Young Fathers, and of course Ray won. That one. Song of the Year went to Miracle, Prada, Let Go, Sprinter, Dance the Night. There's so many Song of the Years in here. Eyes Closed, Who Told You, Strangers, Wish You the Best, Boy's a Liar, Escapism won with Ray, Dancing is Healing, Fire Babe, React, and Messy in Heaven. Those were all the songs. I'm not going to tell you the artists, just go listen to the songs. Artist of the Year, nominees were Arlo Parks, Central C, Dave, Dua Lipa, Fred Again, J Hus, Jessie Ware, Little Sims, Olivia Dean, and Ray was the winner. Group of the Year, Blur, Chase and... I can't believe Blur is still even being nominated for stuff. I guess they make music still? I don't hear it. I like Blur. Nothing wrong with Blur. They're one of the top British bands, I guess, of the 2000s. Chase and Status, Heidi won, and K-Trap, Jungle won Group of the Year, and Young Fathers. Pop Act, Calvin Harris, Charlie XCS, Dua Lipa won, Olivia Dean and Ray. An alternative rock act, Blur, Bring Me the Horizon, still makes music. That's also interesting. The Rolling Stones they did release a new album. Young Fathers, we talked about that last year, about Rolling Stones' new album. And Yusuf Days, Bring Me the Horizon won. Hip-hop, grime, and rap went to Cass Is Dead, but there was also Central C, Dave, J Hus, and Lil Sims as nominees. Ray won R&B Act, with nominees of Cleo Sol, Georgia Smith, Maha Leah, and Salt. Calvin Harris won Best Dance Act. I don't know if he danced or he had some music that was really good dance music. I think probably dance music. I don't think Calvin Harris dances. Barry Can't Swim, Becky Hill, and Fred Again, and Rami were the nominees of that. Best New Artist went to Ray, again, as we already we already discovered she won most of her things. Mahalia, Olivia Dean, Pink Pantheress, and Yusuf Days were nominees in that. International Song of the Year. There's many. What Was I Made For? Daylight, Paint the Town Red, Giving Me, People, Made You Look, Flowers, Stick Season, Miss You, Vampire, It Goes Like Na Na Na, Calm Down, Kill Bill, Greedy, and Water, with Flowers being the winner. International Artist of the Year went to SZA, with nominees of Asake, Burdan Boy, Caroline Polachek, C-Mat, or C-M-A-T, Kylie Minogue, Lana Del Rey, Miley Cyrus, Olivia Rodrigo, and Taylor Swift. Kylie Minogue is Australian, so that's why she is technically an international artist. She's not British, technically.
Well, it's a different country.
Though a lot of people in Australia are from the UK, or I think also the Netherlands, so.
But it's still not UK.
International Group of the Year, Blink-182. Boy Genius was the winner. Foo Fighters, Gabriels, and Paramore. And the Brits' Rising Star went to The Last Dinner Party. Songwriter of the Year went to Ray, and Producer of the Year went to Chase and Status, with Katie Basser and Sekou being nominees, I guess, for the Rising Star. So there you go. That's all the things that happened at the Brits, so you don't need to watch. I'm sure you can check out social media from some funny moments or funny monologues or whatever happened at the Brits 2024. On to this day in history.
Hey, I don't have a lot to add to that. Because I'm old and a lot of those names just flew by me like...
I don't know most of them either, to be fair. British like music is a very small... It's not it's big, but also small, right? It's a click. So if you are into British music, you probably know all those people. If you don't listen to a lot of British music, you only know 10% of them.
Well, my old guy take on this is always, well, British music is always best when they were feeding us back the blues, right? Yeah. Because American groups weren't playing the blues; they were playing whatever, you know.
Pop music.
And all the white people in England heard the American blues on the radio that the white people in America didn't hear, because they were segregated radio stations.
Yeah.
And then they fed it back to Americans, and Americans like, wow, this is new music, which was already there all along.
To begin with.
Right. We love the Beatles.
Have you heard of
and
this?
the Rolling Stones.
Have you heard of
this date.
Louis Armstrong or something? No, Louis Armstrong, was he blues? No, he was like a...
No, he was jazz.
He was jazz.
Yeah, very jazz.
I'm trying to think of a famous blues guy. Oh,
Muddy Waters, Robert Johnson.
Yeah. Have you heard of those guys? Yeah. They sound so similar to the Beatles.
Little Richard, Chuck Berry. They all got listened to in England. Well, Chuck Berry was at least successful in the United States.
Yeah. I know who Chuck Berry is.
Enough of the silly Cliff Notes history of music. This day in history, in 1475, Italian Renaissance artist Michelangelo, who exerted unparalleled influence on Western sculpture, painting, and architecture, whose works rank among the most famous in existence, like the Sistine Chapel ceiling, was born in this day in the Republic of Florence. So happy birthday, Michelangelo! Long before you were a turtle. 1619. French satirist and dramatist Savianin Cyrano de Bergerac, who is the basis of many romantic but unhistorical legends, was born in Paris. So, yeah, Cyrano de Bergerac was a real person. 1820, U.S. President James Monroe signed the Missouri Compromise, which allowed Missouri to be admitted to the Union as a 24th state. The legislation marked the beginning of the sectional conflict over the extension of slavery that led to the American Civil War. So the Missouri Compromise was very compromising. 1834, Toronto, now the financial and commercial center of Canada, was incorporated. So happy birthday to Toronto. You are 190 today.
Wow.
Now, 1836, the Alamo in Texas fell to Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna after a 13-day siege, a little tiny building in San Antonio, Texas. 1853, Giuseppe Verdi's opera La Traviata premiered in La Fenice Opera House in Venice. La Fenice, it's pronounced. 1857, U.S. Chief Justice Roger B. Taney announced the Dred Scott decision, making slavery illegal in all U.S. territories. A terrible decision. Of course, the Supreme Court was just full of shit back then, too. In 1869, at a meeting of the Russian Chemical Society, Russian chemist Dmitry Mendeleev presented the first periodic table. So the periodic table was born on this day. 1899, the German company Bayer trademarked the name aspirin for its drug made from acetylsalicylic acid. Of course, they also trademarked morphine or heroin. I think, what they call it, morphine or heroin. Anyway, that's Bayer Pharmaceutical. This is your pain relief. 1927, on this day, Latin American author Gabriel Garcia Marquez was born in Aracataca, Colombia. Aracataca. Wow. Don't say that. 1857, Ghana became an independent nation led by Prime Minister Kwame
Happy
Nkrumah.
Independence, Ghana.
1964, American.
What were they? Was Ghana part of France or part of the UK? I don't know. They're gonna leave. That's what I wanted to tell a terrible pun.
We're gonna leave. 1964, American boxer Cassius Clay took the name Muhammad Ali, which was given to him by his spiritual mentor Elijah Muhammad, leader of the Nation of Islam.
I wonder if that happened. If that happened right now, how pissed would people would be? No, I think anti or I guess Islamophobia has increased.
What do you mean if it happened right now? You don't even know what happened in 1964.
What happened in 1964?
People still call them Cassius Clay for like 5-6 years. So let's not pretend that we're big enlightened from 1964. No, we're far more.
No, I'm not saying we are more enlightened. I'm just saying. Well, I wasn't there either, so you were there, but you were 2 or whatever.
People change their name. Athletes change their name all the time nowadays. And nobody gives a shit. So.
Yeah, but his was specifically religious awakening. That's why it's different.
But it still happens all the time today. They change their name to a Muslim name. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Back in *64, it was a big deal.
Okay.
Nobody cares at all. No, this is not a thing anymore. I don't even know of any example of that happening in the States. Do you?
No, I was just asking a question.
Oh, okay.
I was just putting a question into the ether.
Oh, I was just saying. I don't.
Curiosity.
Oh no! If people called him Cassius Clay, wait until the '70s. Couldn't get over it. 1991, Walter Cronkite, who was known as the most trusted man in America, signed off as longtime anchor of CBS Evening News. In 1986, American painter George O'Keeffe, who I believe shares a birthday with you, died at the age of 98. His well-known works included large format paintings of natural forms, especially flowers and bones, and she lived in New Mexico. 2016, American First Lady Nancy Reagan passed away in Los Angeles at the age of... It doesn't say how old she was. That's weird. But Nancy Reagan, President Reagan's spouse. Featured event. King Tut's tomb was opened on this day 100 years ago today. The Egyptian government opened the mummy case of King Tutankhamun, ruler of Egypt in the 14th century BCE, whose burial chamber had been discovered in 1922 by renowned British archaeologist Howard Carter, and of course, all hell broke loose, and we all got the Indiana Jones movies because of it.
And also, we've been cursed ever since, I would argue.
That's right.
We've actually cursed society.
Boy King Tutankhamun,
who died from falling off. I think the theory was he died from falling off his chariot or something. No, he was a chariot racing or something, and he broke his neck falling off his chariot or something like that.
And we still don't know
falling
who
off
he
his
is.
camel. It's Tutankhamun. That's who he is. You know, that's who he is.
King Tut. He was even the Batman villain. King Tut. Remember that? I don't remember that.
No, I don't think I read
There's this
Batman
big
comics.
actor named. There was this big actor named Victor Bono or something like that, who played this King Tut, who was for some reason a huge man. A villain of Batman. So
yeah.
Look it up. Maybe we should have done that in the old mic drop. Our feature biography is Valentina Tereshkova, Soviet cosmonaut, born in 1937. She's turning 86 today. Happy birthday to the first woman in space. Mariselenko, who was born in 1937 in Masalenikovo, Russia. Famously, the Soviet Union did not see gender. So there you go. 1508, Humayun, the Mughal emperor, was born. 1926, Alan Greenspan, who I think is still kicking, former chair of the Fed, born in 1926. That makes him 98. I don't know if he's still kicking. 1927 is the birthday of, we already covered, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Marion Barry, former mayor of Washington's birthday, 1936. And Shaquille O'Neal, speaking of athletes, was born on this day, 1972. So happy 52nd birthday to Shaq. How is Shaq 52? Wow, he's old. He's old now. What else national day is it besides Shaq's birthday? It's National Hug a GI Day. You can't hug Shaq, you only come to his crotch. Unless you stand up on a chair.
I probably only come to his knee.
Right. National Pound Cake Day is March 4th. So go pound on a cake. And it's National Grammar Day. And if you're not pounding on a cake, you can be pounding on your drums because it's National Marching Music Day.
That's right. Start marching.
I found Melanie's clarinet under the bed. I think I'm going to just put it together and see what it sounds like.
Are you sure it's not my clarinet?
Oh no, it says Melanie's name on it.
Oh, is it a small one, a small case, or a big case?
It's a little case with Melanie's name on it.
Okay, but I gave her my clarinet at some point.
That's not the same one.
Okay.
National Grammar Day. It's today. It's National Sun's Day. It's
like having a son or the sun?
Oh, the son, as in the offspring.
Okay.
The male gender. And it's also National Grammar Day, not Grandma Day. But you should always be nice to your grandma anyway.
If you have one, anyways. I don't have any grandmas. 0 grandmas here.
I never knew any of my grandmas. They were both gone before I was born.
Yeah.
My parents were
tragic.
So old. It wasn't tragic. Well, it was tragic. I was just saying, it's like, my parents were so old. Right?
Yeah.
They were almost grandparents already. They were. As a matter of fact. That's it. That's all the juice we can squeeze out of that. So back to you. For March 4th, 2024, and before coffee.
All right, this is Van Alison here from the Netherlands, where the sun is shining brightly, and we are not getting hopefully hit by a giant dust storm. I hope coming from the Middle East. We will see you tomorrow for Good Tuesday News Day, where we'll cover all the good stuff that's happening in the world. Here is your mic drop moment.
The great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed effort to convert retreat into advance. In every dark hour of our national life, a leadership of frankness and of vigor has met with that understanding and support of the people themselves, which is essential to victory. And I am convinced that you will again give that support to leadership in these critical days. In such a spirit on my part and on yours, we face our common difficulties. They concern, thank God, only material things. Values have shrunk to fantastic levels. Taxes have risen. Our ability to pay has fallen. Government of all kinds is faced by serious curtailment of income. The means of exchange are frozen in the currents of trade. The withered leaves of industrial enterprise lie on every side. Farmers find no market for their produce, and the savings of many years in thousands of families are gone. More important, a host of unemployed citizens face the grim problem of existence, and an equally great number toil with little return. Only a foolish optimist can deny the dark.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.